Kevin Rudders with me. I want to talk health and the Greens, but first we've managed to get a copy of that what Stephen Smith said about you being a human shield for the Prime Minister. I'd like to play it to you.
Kevin Rudd has said that if anyone challenges, and no one is out there saying they're challenging, that he will be a human shield protecting the Prime Minister, and that's a very good thing for him to do and to say.
Well, you did say at the time of the last challenge, if anybody took her on, you'd be there to stand with her, will you?
Neil, I've got nothing to add to the first part of our interview on this. I think we've done it to death. I don't intend to go over it again.
Health. Now, famously, you said the buck stops with you. You designed perhaps the system that we have now got, which is causing enormous angst in Victoria in particular. Beds closed at the Children's, the Cancer Hospital, staff sacked. It is just not, waiting lists growing, it is just not working for patients, for people. How do we sort it out? If the buck stops federally, how do we sort it out?
Let me just go to two basic facts here. And I heard something of the stoush between my colleague Tanya Plibersek before and Ted Baillieu, the Premier, on your program. There's two core truths here. One is federal allocations to the states, including Victoria, for health and hospitals, is going up and up and up and up. That's just the truth. The second is, since Ted's been Premier, and he said this sotto voce in his interview with you before, that he had had $616 million worth of savings. Not cuts, he said, savings. Well, that's cuts in any other man's language. There are three big holes in what Ted said this morning, and just hear me out on this and then go for broke. The first is this. On the savings question, cuts, $616 million in a couple of years is a lot of money.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah, in a few years is a lot of money. The second thing is, in Victoria alone, there have been something like 3,500 less elective surgery procedures since he's been in. Now, that's before there's any controversy over the last 3 months about the decision taken by the federal government on the basis of the Australian Bureau of Statistics data.
107 million. Yep.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm saying the direct impact of Baillieu's cuts were reflected in the system well before this controversy. In fact,
but they weren't sacking people and closing beds.
Let me finish the points of logic, which are actually completely missing in Ted's presentation to you before. And the third one is this. The formula by which these things are calculated. When Ted Baillieu signed this agreement with Prime Minister Gillard in 2011, he described it as a fantastic deal for Victoria. Guess what else was in that agreement? The precise mathematical formula whereby fluctuations in the payments were going to be measured. And that was hanging on three things. The Australian Bureau of Statistics data on population projections. The second thing is the Health Inflation Index, calculated by the Australian Institute of Health Welfare. And thirdly, the Health Technology Index. Now, he signed up to that. That is the formula. And for him to suggest that the Australian Bureau of Statistics is producing dodgy figures is a direct accusation concerning the integrity of the Australian Bureau of Statistics.
I wouldn't worry about integrity, the way the Prime Minister goes on at him. I wouldn't worry about that argument.
Nice deflection, Neil. He's attacked the ABS. It's not a government department.
Oh, heaven forbid we attack a bureaucrat.
No, but hang on. The Australian Bureau of Statistics is not a government department which does the minister's bidding. They are required under statute to independently calculate all manner of data right across the nation, upon which agencies then depend. So they're the three big holes in Ted's argument.
It is correct that 107 million has been cut out by the federal government, isn't it?
Well, based on the application of the formula, which Ted agreed to in 2011 and said that it was a fantastic deal for Victoria, then based on those population numbers projected for Victoria and certain other states, there was an adjustment of 107 million, which other states, many of them, absorbed generally across the system.
So it's an adjustment.
Hang on.
Not a cut.
Which Ted then decided to do this. Listen to it very carefully, mate. He took that and said, here is my best masking device to cover up the 616 million I'm taking out of the system by my own decision. And he has sought to blame his own cuts to elective surgery procedures on a Commonwealth adjustment which didn't occur until 3 months ago, for God's sake.
Why make that adjustment immediate? Why not spread it over a period of time?
Well, that's a methodological question which, frankly, as a humble backbencher on the application of population adjustments, that's for others to determine.
But what did you design? When you did the deal, when you prepared this, what did you design?
We designed, well, let me go to the broader principles of the design.
I want to know whether you're going to take out the money immediately or put it over a period of time.
No, you've asked me about design. Let me answer. Hey, you did.
Yeah,
you asked me a question about design, I'll answer it. And the question about design is this. When Mr. Abbott was Health Minister...
Oh, no.
Neil, 41% of the funding costs of the state hospital system was paid by the Commonwealth. It went down to that from 45% under the Howard government. Abbott himself conceded that's $1 billion cut under him when he was health minister. Secondly, oh no, it's not, because what we agreed to in 2011 was this, and this is the framework within which this occurs.
Yep.
You may not want to hear this, but it is the truth. In the 2011 health agreement, we said that's wrong. It can't be 41%. We have to be equal partners with the states, and we therefore have an agreement to bring it back to 50% over the course of the agreement. And the result of that new agreement, not Abbott's shrinking it to 41, but bringing it back to 50, is that across the nation you therefore have billions of additional dollars being invested in the health system. In the last 5 years alone,
but
here's
that's not
the fact.
The question I asked. Under your scheme, would this $107 million have been cut, sort of gone now, or would it have been spread over a period of time?
$1.2 billion more has been delivered to the Victorian health and hospital system. This is the answer. It is exactly the answer. $1.2 billion more has been delivered to the Victorian health and hospital system than would have been delivered under the pre-existing formula of Mr. Abbott.
Right,
and within that $1.2 billion, this current year, 2012-13, coming to the present, what's the Commonwealth allocation to Victoria? $3.6 billion. How much is that an increase on the previous year? Just under $200 million. Therefore, when Mr. Baillieu takes out $616 million, that basically undoes all the increases which the federal government has provided.
So would the $107 million that's been cut, under the system, would that have been sort of amortised over a period of time, or would it have gone out as it has?
Well, on the detailed operationalisation of an adjustment based on the formula which Baillieu himself agreed to in 2011, that's a matter for the health bureaucrats of whether it's shaved over time or whether it's done in one lump.
So it wasn't in the agreement?
That's a matter for jurisdictions to resolve among themselves. But the point is this. Under this federal government, there has been a massive increase in health funding to the state of Victoria. And what Ted is doing is saying, here is an adjustment figure of $107 million out of a massive increase in health funding to Victoria, hundreds and hundreds of millions, and he's using that to mask his own $616 million worth of cutbacks. We're building GP super clinics.
So where does the buck stop?
Well, we're building GP super clinics across the state. The buck stops with us on that. They weren't here before. We've just built 4 new integrated cancer care centres across the Victorian state.
Yeah, where does the buck stop at Peter Mac, where they're closing beds, or at the Royal Children, where they're sacking staff, or people who can't get hip operations? Where does the buck stop there?
Well, let me tell you where it goes to in terms of cancer care. Regional cancer care centres, $167 million invested by this government. In the Ballarat region, $42 million. Gippsland region, $22 million. Geelong, $26 million. Albury-Wodonga, $65 million, none of which existed under the previous federal Liberal government, all of which are the product of what we have done.
You've accused me of deflection.
No, so therefore, this is all about Ted taking a $107 million adjustment, which most governments of the size of Victoria can adjust with over time, based on a formula he signed up to mask his $616 million cut, and to ignore the whole breadth of what this government has done. Ask the people in Geelong, ask them in Ballarat, ask them in Gippsland, ask them in Albury-Wodonga about their new centres.
It's a simple question. Where does the buck stop on health?
Well, the buck stops with health when it comes to the federal government honouring its financial commitments to the states. 50% of funding as opposed to the 41% of funding which it collapsed to under the Howard government. We're delivering on that.
Okay. I know you've got to get away. Greens. Now, I can't believe the Labor Party people are lining up to kick the Greens. Last week they were your mates. Now you're saying they're all drongos. What's going on?
Well,
although you haven't been their mate, in fairness, because they dudded you on.
That's true. I think we're agreed on that. Well, let's call a spade here. The emissions trading scheme, which I had a mandate for going into the 2007 election, we tried to legislate twice in the years 2008-9. The Green Party sided with the Liberals to vote it down. Principled pack of environmentalists that the Green Party happened to be. So I'm not surprised when they behave in an opportunistic fashion.